And I will say something from the panel point of view, and maybe repeat some things which are important, at least for us. As you have understood, if you look after the projects, and what we do is in fact to serve European scientific progress as good as possible. Is that the percentages awarded grants in each panel are the same. I was only in one panel, which is of course defined by budget. This also means that it's important even to support your own field to send in an application, because then there might be more grants awarded in your own field. And it is, of course, based on a ranking. Because if you have this application, let's say you receive 100 applications, you may be sure that 95% are good science. There are a few of them which are not good, but and then you have to make a ranking at the end without comparing them, which is not so easy. So as I already mentioned, there are two steps. The first step is where we look at the B1, this 5-page summary of your work, and this is of course a process that is entirely done by the panel. Such a panel consists of about 15 members that cover your whole field. If you think at chemistry, where I'm in, it should cover as well anorganics, as organics, as bioorganics, as physical chemistry. There is a lot of different fields, which makes it not so easy to compare them. But the panel is taking care that you have about, or the people that assemble the panels, that you have about 4 to 5 members that really understand your application. And it is also those people that make a report of your application remotely. But all 50 members receives all the reports in advance. So before the meeting starts, we have all the comments, and from each application, we have about 4 or 5 jury members that have written a report about your applications, and this is sent in advance so that we can read it. And at the meeting itself, it is one person that will make the summary, that will present the project so that everybody understands the project. It explains the project, and it summarizes also the comments to start the discussion about your applications. This is a quite intensive discussion. It takes 4 days to discuss all the programs, all the projects, and to rank them. It's quite intensive. Sometimes you do not. It's important to know that we always go for a consensus. That means that some programs, some applications, you are finished in 5 or 10 minutes. But others, it can take half an hour, and there is no consensus. We can take it up again the second day or the third day, till we find a consensus. So we avoid to vote about projects. And as mentioned by Dr. Magnoli, they are divided in 3 groups. 1/3 that are the third top that go to step 2, and then 1/3 about 1/3 that are of that can come back in 2 years, and then those of lower quality, which have to wait still a little bit longer and to think about the project before they come back. It is important. There are some things that are important. For example, that you take care that you have a proof of concept. It cannot be completely out of the blue, even if it is high risk and high gain. But this is the criteria. Is your project high risk and high gain? Now, this high gain can be everything. Don't think you have to solve cancer or something like that to have a high gain, because I will not believe you. But it might be also, for example, a scientific progress. An important scientific progress could be also a high gain. But on the same time, when it's high risk, and I think it's also mentioned that it's important criteria, is also if it is feasible to do within the 5 years of the project. I don't think everything will always be feasible. And I think in most cases, not everything will be feasible, but the most part should be feasible, and you should show that in that way you have scientific progress. It's also important, I think, that every proposal is evaluated individually. There is no, although we make a ranking, there is no comparison between projects. It's an individual judgment of your project, and it gets an individual note. And then, just like in an examination at the university, you look at the students, his or her examination, and then later on at the end you can rank them. There is, of course, also in parallel the evaluation of the PI, which is also the criteria is mentioned already by Dr. Magnoli. I will repeat you that it's not only the impact factor of the journals, we don't care, but also we don't care about your high age factor and about your number of citations. We don't look at numbers. So that everybody would have a fair chance independent of the past. Of course, you have to have this 10 years achievement, which is important. Then you can ask the question, what's important in this 10 years achievement? Of course, we have to read there that you are able to do the project. For example, the person has already done groundbreaking research. Can you prove that? So please explain it in words or in whatever way. Do you have the scientific expertise? You cannot come with a program out of the blue, which you never did in the past. Do you have really the expertise, the scientific expertise to prove that? And sometimes you go to your, because your name is known, of course, by the applications, we can go to your publication list also on the website, see what you publish to show that you have the scientific expertise to do it. If you have a project, but you have then your 10 references going to another subject, that's not very good. And another criterion, because it's funding by the European Community, also partially for the future, not only for the progress in European scientific achievement, is your capacity to train students. I think this is also a very important criteria. Are you able to train with the budget you get and in the past already, because that you have to show? Are you able to train students and bring them at a PhD level and see what happens with them in the society? Are you really support also the this whole process is also important. So I would say a potential mistake. You see what we have to judge high risk, high gain. A potential mistake is that people do not provide us enough information in B1 to be able to judge this. Sometimes I write B1 in very general terms, that I want to do, but not in details enough that we are able to judge it, and then your proposal will fail. So you have to provide, and this is, I repeat it, sometimes a mistake, that you say, okay, yeah, might have nice ideas, but we cannot judge it if it is high gain and high risk, because we don't see, for example, in chemistry, any chemical formula or any chemical principle with which he wants to solve or she wants to solve that problem. It's of course very important also to give the necessary details to be able to judge high risk, high gain already in B1. Of course, the collaborations, you cannot put a part of your responsibility for the project by the collaborators. Collaborators might provide service, but you may not, they are not part of the high risk, high gain. Of course, because as collaborators, we have to accept them. Okay, we can look at, of course, at the internet, which kind of people, but generally it is not done. So this selected proposal are then sent out to the external referees. They are cared about the commission, that there are about 5-6 external referees for your proposal. And those external referee comes out of a list suggested by the panel. So the panel in these 4 days also take care that we suggest about 10-15 external reviewers, because of course, generally only 1/3 is really answering that I will do the job, because it's a quite intensive job to reach your B2. the second step, which is much more work indeed. But also in the second step, the process is about the same. The external reporters write a report. Also, the internal reporters of the commission, they write a new report. Because now they have new information. They can read more. They can judge it better. So they are, everybody writes again these reports, and you see that now they are really judged by the real specialists in the field. And also here, and here it's more difficult because you have already 30% of the only 1/3 of the proposal ranked, and be sure they are all good proposals. It's not because you don't get ranking that your proposal is not good, but it's again the ranking. And here sometimes you have to go to really details, justification of your budget, the fine tuning. The details start to count when you have only good proposals. Be careful because additional funding, because we are very critical about that. You have to realize that if you have only 1/3 of the proposal accepted and you ask for additional funding, there might be one of the other colleagues of you who will not get funded. So this is, of course, very important, and we look very closely to that. It's important, of course, your timing, and then we really go in the final discussion. That's about the way how the I would say how the proposals are evaluated quite intensely, because it's an on-site meeting in Brussels of about 4 days, each from 9 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening. So at the end, you are quite tired after this. Another question is, of course, how you judge multidisciplinary or multidisciplinarity as a criterion. So as already said by Dr. Manoli, when you are multidisciplinary, your application is also sent to a reviewer of another panel. And this other panel member from the other member of the other panel will not join the meeting of the other panel because they have their meetings in parallel. They send a report. The report is submitted to the first panel and handled in the same way as the other reports. Another I would say a second way how to do multidisciplinarity is that panels are sometimes already somewhat multidisciplinary. For example, in the chemical panel, there is one biologist, who will also look at your proposal if it has biological aspects in that. So this is, I would say, the way how the commission is assembled. The panels already include some, not everything, of course, multidisciplinary facts or members. And of course, there is also a third selection on multidisciplinarity, because if we send in the second round, we look for referees, we take care that to select reviewers that cover the different aspects of your applications. So if it is chemistry with biology, you might have also 1 or 2 biological persons as a referee. So I think there are 3 levels in which this multidisciplinarity can be judged in I think, a quite good way. The other question is how to choose a panel. I think that was also a question that is asked. So this criteria of high risk, high gain, which is a question is asked from each panel. And you have to then to think very deeply, because it's difficult to be high risk, high gain in several disciplines if you put several disciplines together, because each panel will look at the project with its own background and look if it is high risk, high gain in that background. So I would not advise to do that because it's very tough. Yeah? I think that you have to choose a panel in function of if you read your own application or if you ask your colleague to read the application. The panel that I choose, is that the most innovative part of my application? Because you take a risk if your proposal doesn't really fit in this principle of the second or the third panel you sent that. So I think you have to be very careful in selecting that and giving you the proposal the highest chance to be accepted. There is always the question, what is incremental, what is not incremental? I think it's quite clear that what's incremental is this the next logical step to do to solve the scientific problem. Yeah? There is in each kind of problem solving in science and mainstream thinking in the field. And if you do the next step in this mainstream field, it will be incremental. The questions you have to ask if you write your proposal is, do I look at the problem from a completely new edge? Do I have a novel approach which has not been used before? Do I introduce a novel methodology? Do I develop another methodology to develop issues and problems in this in my scientific proposal? If I have really a novel concept to attack the problem. And this will be not incremental, but if you keep doing, and many people do that, they have the mainstream thinking, and that's the field, and now the next step in the field, the logic to do based on the past is that. Doesn't mean it's a bad proposal. It might be an excellent proposal, but that will stay still an incremental step in the field of the proposal. So that's, I think, a little bit what I had to say from the panel point of view. Okay, I served only one panel. I don't know what other panel do, but I think each panel is led by a panel leader, and this panel leader is somebody from previous years that already was part of the panel. And this panel leader, of course, know how to do. They do a very excellent job, I think. Very objective person. Take care about any details during these I would say 2 rounds of selection.